Okay, this is a bonus video. This last video is optional and a bonus, and you put a skeleton in the character and pose it just to see what it looked like in a quasi animation setup or get it into an action pose, something other than a T pose. And we're going to use something different today. It's called Quick Rig, and it's not exactly a substitute for rigging for a very big project. Very easy to use, and it's a system that's built into Maya to handle most bipedal characters with an automatic rigging process. Even though it doesn't have a head, we can use Quick Rig that will slap a kind of a skeleton inside it that can interact rather quickly. This does not replace custom rigging for a character. In other words, the way we rigged the hand, even though that was very minimal, the hand would be a custom rig process where we draw each bone. Quick Rig is just click, click, and it's automated, and there's a couple of interactive steps you could do, and then it just finds, it's sort of artificially intelligent, it sort of finds and predicts that's, hey, these are limbs, and this probably needs this type of bone structure, and it pops it in. Secondly, Quick Rig uses a different kind of system of different kind of bones, which are very different than the ones that you would draw by scratch. And these bones are closer to Motion Builder and Human IK. Those are probably well beyond any discussion we've ever had, and just being a modeling class. So that's as far a disclaimer as I could present, which simply put is we're going to use Quick Rig. It is just going to be used as a shortcut to get this into a pose, but is not commonly used for a very robust custom-made skeleton and rig design. Okay, that's enough on that. So what I did is just turn off the feathers to get them out of the way. Consider the feathers later. Right now we're just concentrating on the body, and having one mesh is important for this next step. So I'm just going to turn off the feathers. Those go off, and maybe I'll be distracted by the surfaces. So I'm just going to hit 5 to see only the light gray looking material. I'll go in shading, just for convenience so I can visualize it better, and turn on wireframe on shaded. I can see the way each edge will distort after it moves. Grabbing the mesh. Okay, and we're going to make sure this menu set, right there's the menu set, make sure you've selected rigging. It's on rigging. This part's very, very simple. We're just going to go into skeleton. Normally we'd start to create stuff from scratch, but we're going to shoot all the way to the bottom where it says Quick Rig. And this also would mean that you're making your mesh vertical. Make sure you don't lay it down horizontal, because it's very difficult to work on anyway, but it's going to predict based on the typical kind of bipedal position that these are going to be the legs and arms, and that's standing up straight vertically on the y-axis. Just this very basic menu opens, and you can choose one click or step by step. So what this does is just what I mentioned about predicting where things are and placing them. It's going to guess for you that this must be an elbow, this must be this. It's not going to do a job on the fingers. It's going to do a very basic job ending at the wrists where you can pose it. So let's just do it without over explanation. Just as a one click, I'm not going step by step to modify it now. Just as with nothing else, is open it, click the mesh, and just click auto rig, and let's see what happens. It might take a bit to figure it out. In the auto rig process, it's looking at the anatomy and figuring out where it could put these kinds of joints. And you'll see, by the way, this opens on the right, a very different kind of control for a character. This kind of bone and IK is used for Motion Builder, as I mentioned, motion capture and other applications. It's very different than the bone system we would make by scratch, and it's controlled through this quick rig character kit here. All right. This system is called Human IK. It's been around for a while. It just works a little bit differently than regular IK. So it guessed that, yep, these are going to be the feet. It's guessed is probably the midsection, the waist, the center of gravity, and these are the arms and hands. Let's just move stuff. So we grab these little controls. We're not grabbing the bones in yellow. We're grabbing these little controls and moving them kind of like IK. And you haven't really learned what IK is yet. That's all right. This lecture is just about getting a rig on there and posing it. So how this is bending, of course, is not ideal. That could be moved more to where the elbow really starts to bend, where we put in geometry right there. And if we went step by step, we could be dragging these locations to where they better are suited. Black background, you can see a little better. We could grab the feet and move a foot around to pose the character. We could grab the minimal controls it has at the waist, this square, and put a rotation on the waist. We could grab, there's a couple of controls right here. There's two for the shoulder. There's one right here to control the bend. It's going to the upper neck and the spine. Good enough perhaps to get your figure or your character that you made into a pose, and something off the T-pose. Right here, I think I broke it. Well, you get the idea. And of course, before you do all this, should have mentioned, great idea to save, because any rigging and any moving of the rig of the bones can damage, even permanently if there's an error, damage the mesh and not get it back. But this would be a great way to get a pose right away on your character without, without any fuss or having to know much more about rigging. Okay, you probably are thinking about the hands. What about the hands, and get a finger pose on there? You could go back to the skeleton you made for the hand, pull out the skeleton, and insert it in this, and have it a combination of human IK and standard joints. Quick Rig is not going to, in this case, anticipate that it has hands and figures and put a joint system inside there. Also, you're going to be wondering about the feathers, how they would affect and work with this. So we'll talk about that just in a minute. Just playing with how inaccurate is doing the toes. It can't really see everything you're doing and every nuance of the difference and diversity of the anatomy in your character. If it was just a shoe here, maybe it could foresee what the toe would be doing. Just the lumpy toe part of a shoe. It's not going to go into all the little fingers of the hand and toes of the foot, anything like that. It's not quite that smart, but of how it unfolds. So if that's what you want, you could try this process again. Instead of just one click, try step by step and going through that. It is pretty user friendly. It's made for people who don't rig, don't want to, and just want to get a pose on something, as I said. You can see how it's not, the placement of the knee is too far off, so it's adding some rubber banding nature to the legs. Just trying different poses. You have his arm raised up like he is just shooting a free throw or something. Shooting a basketball. Something like that. Also, Quick Rig is probably going to think that the legs at the knee part are going to bend forward and not backward like in a stork or a bird, the way I had it. So that might be part of the problem of it not foreseeing every type of situation. Now, considering any other part that's separate from the mesh that you want to move along with the pose, in this case like the transparency cards or the feathers, that would have to be individually selected and assigned to the bones. So make sure you do not save anything you mess with Quick Rig or anything else over the file, your original file. Your T-pose you certainly want to protect and preserve, because you might do this quick rig many times, or you may have to go back to the original, because this can really damage your mesh. Any type of rigging can damage the mesh. Make sure you have a protected file that has only the T-pose. Here we are back to the T-pose, and we could do a little more consideration for how everything is going to be connected to the rig, to the quick rig, I should say. Okay, I'm going back to the basic T-pose. I'm going to try that quick rig again. Opening the quick rig menu and skeleton. And this time, not just that one click, which is not going to serve us most well in many cases, but going to click step by step. And first we click plus to create a new character. All right. Okay, we did that by just clicking the plus right here. And then we're going to add the mesh in this geometry area by having it selected and clicking plus again here. And it adds the geometry. So for the embed method, it's set on imperfect mesh, which is what we want to keep it on. Let's keep the resolution and that other things on default setting. If you open guide settings, you could add extra bones, extra joints in the spine or in the neck. Let's say it had a really long neck and can't anticipate that automatically. You could put higher in here, or has wider shoulders, customize a little bit more to the anatomy of your character. I think default would be okay. Just keeping that. Okay, with that at default, we're just still on step number 2, create an update. Click that button, create update. So that created these little orange joints, which you're going to go and place in a more proper position for your character's anatomy. I moved to a side view where you could place and see everything much more flatly. And you see better these orange joints, which you can select and move to where the better location would be for a joint, where two bones would come together. And something like this, that joint right there should be moved right to where the elbow really is on this character, to be right here. And you could fix that throughout. If the shoulder really should be here, you could just feel where the bones of the joints might come together on this particular character, and how it would work on yours, how things would need to, be moved around to its best or optimal location, let's say, where the wrist should be, where the wrist is on your anatomy, or the shoulder might be higher and a little bit better placed on the anatomy. Just go around the whole figure like this, in a flat view advised. And after this, you should look in the side view too to see if the joints are still inside the mesh where they should be, or not popping out or something. Okay, it's looking pretty good, except maybe for little ones on the feet, which I can make sure it's going to fall better inside the mesh of the toes. Can spread out these spine bones a little more evenly as they're getting clustered together a bit. Too much. Okay, just through common sense, distributing these little orange targets will later become the bones. Check the top view. Some of them might be in a different spot than you thought. The wrist is a little off here. Should be more there. If you did want to save some time, you'll be thinking about it. Mirror your work on one side, you want to mirror the placement of the others. This one right here can mirror what you've moved on one side to the other. Say if I just want to work on the right side, icon here under user alignment, you can click it, and whatever repositioning you made on the right side can reflect on the left, and vice versa. Let's say that this placement is good and you want it symmetrical with this placement over here. You could just select that particular joint there, and this would be the one to mirror to the other side. Then it pops it into place. So if you like, just do one side and have it mirrored. That would assume that you have a mesh that's perfectly mirrored and not asymmetrical, of course. Also, if you look what's going on in this quick character rig set for Human IK, that's again the name of the skeleton that we put in a quick rig. It's a different type of species of skeleton called Human IK. It's going to even tell you, it already auto names it as left up leg. Okay, done with that. Up to 3, now 2, 4. We pop that open. We have skeleton settings, and it has something called T stance correction. We've already modeled that in a T pose. If it wasn't modeled in a T pose, it's even smart enough to try to foresee how to connect to something that's out of a T pose. The next thing to do in 4 is click the wide button here, create an update. All the new placements that we made have to be refreshed through the quick rig system. So creating and updating that, and we have a new control system here for quick rig and control rig on the right. Anyway, binding method you could keep on the default setting, and it should do a pretty good job. Last step, just create update. Okay, so are you sure you want to delete the following skin? So I think I accidentally hit the button twice. In that case, just hit OK because it had a skin a microsecond before that I accidentally hit the button twice. All right, so this is a better configuration of the skeleton. Updating it. Right, and it's going to interact a little better with this motion. Let's set it back at T-pose and just undo. Before you do anything yet, great idea to save this as a unique protected file. Just save it as rigged, done, T-pose, something like that. So you know you can always come back to it if you get in trouble and you mess up the rig. So I'm just saving as Fantasy Body Build 6 rigged. So I know I'm going to come back to that file ever I need that T-pose back. Especially useful for animation when we want to go to the default stance of the character before we animate another scene. Now, for appendages, or let's call them equipment or attachments that are not part of the mesh, like the feathers and mine, you know, what would you do to have them move with the skeleton? Well, you can parent anything that's coming off a particular bone. You could parent that to the bone. I could create my own joint system here, just a few joints, one joint ascribed to a cluster of feathers, and then parent that bone to the most nearby rigged bone over here. There's a couple of options, and it gets a little bit deeper into rigging. You can keep it simple, and I'm just going to do straight up parenting to have it kind of move with the character. First, for mine and all these feathers, I want to make sure I get them out of these groups so I can reorchestrate its structure, its hierarchy. So you might have remembered I grouped them together to get one wing to copy on the other side. Click ungroup and edit to ungroup those. Definitely working in the hypergraph. Okay, all the leaves are pulled off, any hierarchy here, and laying nice and flat because we're going to reorg that. We could probably start with these cards just on the back of the hand, make sure we don't miss any just by selecting them. This would double, you know, for anything that you would have like clothing, well, I don't know, rigid clothing, I suppose, like a hat or a shield or an armor or something that's attached but kind of not attached. Make sure we don't miss anything. And, you know, got all that selected as these free children here. See in the hypergraph. And just once you got them all, just shift select whatever the closest joint is. Be that one. Shift select that and just hit P for parent. So you are just attaching whatever item, equipment piece just coming off it, it's going to be attached to the nearest joint and move and deform with it. It's not going to be a perfect solution for parts that are going to start to penetrate one another when they're bent too much, but this will get you along. So you can see it's be moving with it. Going to be moving, interacting with that. All right, make sure you put it back in the T-pose position. Whatever you do, don't astray so far that you don't return it to the regular T-pose, because that's how things can really get broken. All right, and I'm just going to go through the rest and grab a cluster of items, in my case feathers, and attach it to the nearest bone I wanted it to move. I wanted it to move like big pieces of cardboard and paper anyway, so this is going to work out. I'm going to grab this cluster, attach it to this bone, grab that cluster of feathers, attach it to the shoulder, etc. And when I say attach, I simply mean shift clicking and parent to that joint. Like that, and P for parenting. All this stuff selected, and parenting to that shoulder joint will work nice, I think. There we go. I just last thing I clicked is I shift and click the joint and then hit P for parent. And I'll do the other arm. Make sure you don't miss any of the cards. It's easy to overlook. So make sure you choose the joint. Don't parent it to this red circle or any of the lines. Make sure it's the bone or the joint right here that you've got selected as the parent. And then hit P. Now for the tail, I could have put this joint in the design section of the quick rig menu. I could have put that joint a little sticking out for the rear. That would be the closest joint to use. I could have taken this one and moved it out there. But likely I'm going to select all of these cards and attach it to the center of gravity joint nearest the tail. And it's going to default to this one right there. Okay, I don't think I missed any of the cards. It would be best to use the outliner in a situation like this to get a quick menu and just select, then trying to go in and piece together each selection. So I just parented all those by shift clicking that joint and hitting P. And then I think I just have this fringe feather stuff underneath the jersey to parent. Okay, I got this fringe part and I'm going to parent that to the nearest joint, which would be that one, and I'm going to click P for parent. In a situation like this, you also can use the hypergraph to see if there's any stray feathers that you missed, or if you're adding hair cards or other types of cards. It's easy to lose track of one or two through the interface. The outliner with the list, as I mentioned, or you could clearly see too some of these not now belonging to a long big family, which is joining the skeletal chain here, and all of it's becoming one massive selection. You know, we can see just by selecting the parent node there. So I think I'm good, and I'm going to test some of the movements now. Okay, just moving the center of gravity of the character. We could see the feathers are all moving with it. Quite nice. And of course, before I did this, I did save it. And I put in fully rigged with feathers as a title for the file. So this is moving just like paper or cardboard that is flatly attached. And I know it's coming apart, and I could integrate the parentage of one to the one bone to the other. But I kind of like this, and this is what the intention was anyway, that this is somehow like just strapped to him. Interaction like that. So that's going to conclude this video. I could have fun doing a trial animation without a head, a headless animation of something like that. And as far as the quick rig and a quick show of those components and such, I think you'd have enough to throw a pose onto your character, and all that is just bonus if you want to add. But that really concludes anything I have left to explain or talk about for this project. And good luck on everything. Okay, I just did a to end it nice, I did a quick play blast animation, just using the current rig that is right there. It's not playing smoothly, but maybe I set it on loop, and all right. So it's not playing as smoothly as I like here on the system, but you could see that the feathers and the little appendages or whatever's attached is lagging a little bit behind as well. But we're not going to get really deeply into rigging, and that's just going to end any of the extracurricular stuff for the project, just to give you a taste of what we're modeling for. Eventually, we're modeling in the direction of something can be used, something can be animated, and nothing is wasted in this whole class in this project if you don't want it to. Okay.